Last week I spoke about the creative process, and I spent a lot of time talking about the soil, that part of the creative process that makes things happen, that does what it does. And I talked about how we can clean stuff out of that, weed it, take out the rocks and get rid of the stuff that doesn't belong, and then how we needed to add fertilizer to it to make it healthy and rich and able to manifest those things in our lives. Today we're going to take it a little step further and talk about blossoming into joy, blossoming joy in our lives, bringing about that experience of joy. Now, joy is not something that's external. It's not something that we have to bring from without into ourselves. It's not something that we ever do to bring it. So we can't, and it's a very natural tendency to look for joy outside of ourselves, to look for those things and say, oh, I'm not feeling good right now. I need to bring some more things into my life and to let that happen. But when we begin to understand that joy is a thing that comes forth from within us and that it blossoms out into expression, we get a much deeper experience of what that is. As many of you know, I've studied Joel Goldsmith for more than 15 years now, and he has a story that as soon as I started thinking about this blossoming joy, I was reminded of this story. And he tells it in many of his recorded lectures. It's in several of his books. And it comes from a Persian proverb. And this is the Persian proverb. It says, "If thy mortal goods thou are bereft, and from thy slender store 2 loaves alone to thee are left, sell one, and with the dole buy hyacinths to feed thy soul." That's how it is in the Persian story of it. Joel says it a little differently. He says this. He says this all the time. I mean, it's like in lots of his recordings. "If you have but 2 coppers left, 2 coins, buy one, with one buy a loaf of bread, and with the other buy hyacinths for the soul." Now, there's really nothing magical about hyacinths unless you know them and you can know how wonderful they are because the smell just fills a room. This little flower, this big, the smell will fill this entire space. I actually stopped at Trader's to see if I could buy some this morning, but they're not in season, which I found out. I would have thought they would have been because they force them to bloom. But anyway, they're not in season right now. So in this proverb, in this story that Joel talks about, he's talking about the bread is what is necessary for our life. It's the physical sustenance, the things that we actually need to survive and so forth. And we spend so much of our time focusing on that we often overlook the beauty that we need in our life as well. And it's from the beauty that the joy arises. And beauty comes in all different forms, as we'll talk about a little bit later. But this is what our soul needs to flourish. It is that beauty. It is that inspiration. It is truth. It is spiritual nourishment. It is those words of wisdom. Those things that when you hear them or when you see them, you know, the hair stands up on your arms. You get that feeling inside that just is, you just know that you have connected with something deeper and greater than yourselves. And so as we begin to understand this idea of finding that joy within ourselves, we can find it in lots of different ways. But we have to feed that soul just as much as we feed our body. And as I said, when we're in that level of, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, when our basic needs have not been met, we need to get those met before we can move on to feeding our soul. But we often just focus on that level instead of actually actualizing those higher levels of needs that we have. And those are needs around things like our very existence, our awareness of the world and how it works around us, beauty again. It's the spiritual fulfillment that we seek. And oftentimes when we're struggling to make our basic needs met, it's very easy to not even think about that. I don't have time for that. I got to work and make money to bring more food in, to pay my bills, to do all of the things that I need to do in this physical plane. And we often overlook that spiritual fulfillment that is necessary, that will lead us to an experience of enlightenment, which is where the ultimate joy arises. But when we prioritize finding those hyacinths for our soul, we begin to align ourselves more and more with divine grace. We begin to see it more often in our lives. And we are open to a richer experience of life than we are when we're focused only on material concerns. We need to prioritize feeding the soul as much as we prioritize feeding the body. And when we do that, especially in times of limitation or challenge, something begins to shift inside of us. Because what we've done is we've entered into an agreement with that higher power, whatever you want to call it, God, Spirit, the divine, universe. We have entered into trusting it. When we can begin to shift our focus away from fulfilling our physical needs and looking towards the nourishment of our soul, we are opening ourselves to faith. We are opening ourselves up to an idea that there is a power for good in the universe, and I can use it to change the experience of life that I have. And that powerful good is using me to fulfill itself in this world, in this experience that we're having. And so Goldsmith explains that the beauty, the spiritual study, especially meditation, lifts us into the awareness of this presence, of this higher power, of this divine grace of God, or whatever you want to call it. And from this awareness, even if it's just a glimpse of the awareness, a greater sense of peace develops in times of uncertainty. It's something we can begin to rely on when we are faced with challenges in our world. Inspiration comes to us, especially when things seem to be scarce, when there's a little bit of a struggle. We get inspired to find different avenues to fulfill those physical needs that we have. And then joy, it becomes unconditional. Our joy is no longer dependent on our external circumstances because it's coming from within. It's opening itself up from within us and allowing itself to pour forth. Joel says this in The Art of Meditation. What a miracle the invisible activity has transformed a dry seed, a handful of earth, and a little water into a flower. What a miracle. If the divine can do that to a dry seed, imagine what it can do to you. Imagine the life that can be poured forth from you when you open yourself up to spiritual inspiration, when you open yourself up to meditating and contemplating the presence of the divine. Imagine what can happen to you. If that can happen to a piece of dry seed that has been laying on the ground, imagine what it can do to this thing that's inside of you. Imagine that. It's just amazing. This is how we begin to perceive the law of love at work. Spirit is nothing but pure love, unconditional love. It doesn't sit back and judge us. To believe in a God that judges us is to believe in a super Santa Claus. Making a list, checking it twice. Gonna find out who's naughty and nice. The nice get rewarded, the naughty get punished, right? That doesn't work. That's not what happens here. But to believe in a God that is anything but love is to believe in that kind of a God. To believe in something that is going to judge you because of something that you've done or haven't done or thought or haven't thought. We don't believe in a God that exists that way. We believe in God as pure, unconditional love. It cares as much for that dry seed as it does for you. And if it can do that to the dry seed, imagine what your life can be. So this is an invisible life that is operating through everything. It's an energy that is operating through all of life. It doesn't matter what form of life it is. The same flow of energy is moving through it and allowing it to come forth into expression. And what a miracle it is, what a marvel to see this happen in our world, to see those hyacinths bloom on the ground, to see the beautiful trees in their fullness of leaves, to see everything that is happening here as our earth bursts forth in life. That's the same thing that's happening inside of us every single moment. So it's just absolutely incredible and unexplicable that this is what can happen to something so simple and so easy. So as we begin to do this, we need to look at those things that actually bring us that joy. To look at the things that are coming forth from within us, expressing themselves as joy. Mortonette does it through her music. You heard that just a few moments ago. And we know Justin. You saw him dancing up here. That was pure joy. Pure, inexplicable joy. I wouldn't be doing that. You didn't see me in the video. I was there, but I wasn't in the video. I have this whole rhythm problem going on. It's like, it's not pretty. Our founder, Ernest Holmes, wrote this in his very first book. In 1915, he published the book Creative Mind. And he says, the artist sees beauty and paints it. The musician hears harmony and writes it. The poet listens to the soul and transcribes it. Each is a joyous outlet for the same spirit. It doesn't matter how it shows up, but it needs to show up from within us. Now, many of you know that I do a lot of different creative things. That's kind of my joy. And as I was moving into my house a couple of years ago, a friend was helping me, and she's like, these are just pictures you drew. Why do you want to put them on the wall? And I said, because they make me happy. They make me happy, and that's what I want. She was talking about some pictures that I drew when I was with my father as he was making his transition. I was in the hospital with him for 8 days, and I found I couldn't do a lot of things. I couldn't read. I had a hard time meditating, but I could draw little flowers. And I took those flowers and I, did all of my wonderful things that I do and printed them out into big pictures on canvas, and that's what's framed in my house. And so there was a lot of meaning behind the pictures. They looked like a simple child's drawing of a flower, but behind them was that all of the things that had gone on as I was with my father as he was making his transition, and everything that had led up to that. Because I had come prepared, I was already a minister here at the center, and I was prepared for this experience that I was going through. And it was interesting to find what things were actually wanting to come out from inside of me in this. And when it came out to these flowers, I have a whole artist journal full of them, and I call it Dad's Garden. And that's what it is to me. And so for me, that was joy, and it's just pure joy. And every time I see them all around my house, I remember the joy. I remember the joy of being able to accompany my father as he made his transition. I remember the joy of being able to tell him how much he had meant to me and my brothers and my niece and nephews. I remember the joy that came through with that experience. Now, many times when you're experiencing something quite so traumatic, the focus often is on the hardship of it. But for me, this was a joyous expression. My father had a wonderful life. He lived a beautiful, fantastic life. He loved his family so much that he created this beautiful environment for all of us and left us trained on how to live life ourselves. He was a wonderful example of how to actually live a fulfilled life. And so for me, that's what that joy represented. One of the other things I love, I know it's been happening for about 20 years here in the Valley, is the artwork that is on our freeways. I think that is the most spectacular thing. I see one, I'll see a new installation, and I just get tickled. I mean, I really get tickled with it. And I remember having lunch with a friend about 10 years ago, commenting on that, saying, oh, this is beautiful. Have you seen this interchange up here between 15 and 95? These spectacular, almost like blue firework thingies coming out. They're just gorgeous. And she was like, well, I don't think they should be spending money on stuff like that. Now, I never said a word to her because that's not who I am. But in the back of my head, yeah, you know how that is. But it was a good thing. In the back of my head, I heard Joel say, hyacinths for the soul. Because we need beauty in our lives. We need beauty in every way we can get it. We need beauty to come through us in all different expressions, whether it's music, whether it's visual arts, whether it's poetry that you write, whether it's the way that you create a meal for your family, whether it's the way that you do your work, the job that you do in the world. We need to be able to express that beauty through everything. So what is your hyacinth for the soul? What is it that comes alive inside of you, that expresses through you? What is it that's happening that makes you come alive with joy, that blossoms through you? Think about that. If you're not clear about it, spend some time in contemplation and meditation over the next couple of weeks. See if you can figure that out, and then act upon it and see what happens in your life. See what opens up for you as you begin to experiment with this idea of blossoming joy within you. As I was preparing for this month's talks, I came across a new book, which I think is phenomenal. The book is called Awe, A-W-E, and it's written by Dr. Keltner, who is the scientific genius behind the movie Inside Out, the movie about the Pixar movie about the emotions. He was their consultant on creating the emotions behind that. He works at the University of Berkeley in a department called The Greater Good, which I love that. And so anyway, Docker equates exuberant joy with awe. He said awe is basically joy on steroids. It's actually coming through. And this was his definition of awe. Awe is the feeling of being in the presence of something vast that transcends your current understanding of the world. Anybody want to have their current understanding of the world transcended right now? I could certainly go for a little bit more of that myself. He talks about life having 8 wonders, 8 things that actually begin to bring about this experience of awe. And they're different for each person, and they're different for different times in your lives. But these are the things that he lists as the 8 wonders of life. The first thing is people are inspired by other people's courage or kindness. It is the reason that the number one thing that is shared on Facebook are stories of courage and kindness. That's even more than dog pictures, it gets shared. Because people are inspired by that. People are touched by it, by when you have these wonderful examples of someone who has transcended something so awful that you can't even imagine it, or they have shown such extraordinary kindness to another person or another being in the world. That's what really gets the number 1 likes on Facebook. The second thing, I love this term, collective effervescence. Collective effervescence is what happened when Mortonette had us doing, if you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. It's contagious. It's absolutely coming forth from us, and it's like that moment that we get to be childlike and exuberant, and nobody's judging it whatsoever. Collective effervescence, I love that. The third thing that inspires awe is nature. I have, for 50 years, have been inspired by the mountains that surround this valley. I love these mountains. They're not, some people say, but they're just brown, and I'm like, are you kidding me? Do you know there's a mountain that if you hit it at the right time of day and the shadows are just perfect, there is an absolute perfect image of a horse. Yep, drive up 215 heading west. You'll see it. It's amazing to see what these mountains can do. Have you ever seen the mountains when the sun is hitting them in a way that you've never seen them before? You can see different levels of it. You can see different grooves in it. You can see things that were never there before. So, nature is phenomenal for inspiring awe in us. I mean, Grand Canyon, for one. Just look at some of the amazing things that we have. Go to the ocean. Talk about awe. Ooh. The fourth thing is music. Music is that one thing that will just absolutely touch us to the core. How many of you have a song? How many of you have that song that you know? More than one, yes. My current song, that song for me, is from The Greatest Showman, This Is Me. I love that song. Man, you should hear me in my house when I am singing that song. Now, see, Joe knows to turn my mic off when it's time to sing, but there's nobody turning my mic off at home. And my dogs like it too. They get really excited. So find that song, find that music that really just sets you alive. I know we have people here that are great patrons of some of our music programs here in the Clark County area. People that go to the jazz organizations and to all of the shows at the Smith Center that are regular patrons to the arts. It is a wonderful way to allow yourself to feel joy. The fifth thing is visual design. That's the kind of the art that I was talking about, but it's also architecture. Architecture that is beautiful. I mean, there are buildings out here that are so stunning. I love to get online and look at the ones like in Barcelona. Some of those buildings there are just amazing. I love the old European Gothic cathedrals, and you think, wait, how did they build that? They didn't have cranes. They didn't have cement mixers. They, hand and mortar, chisels, making those stones. Think of the pyramids. Think of the pyramids. Talk about awe and wonder in how that could have possibly be created. Spiritual stories. That's why the Bible has survived so long, because it's filled with stories that give us inspiration and awe. Other spiritual books like the Bhagavad Gita or Lao Tzu's The Way, the Tao. These books have lived throughout the last couple thousand years, bringing us spiritual inspiration. It's why the mystics have written books that touch us in ways that we can't even comprehend. I often say when I'm reading and talking about Joel Goldsmith is I will hear something on his tapes or I will read something in a book and I go back to find it and it's not there. Because it's been inspired from within me. Just the act of reading this sacred material allows it to come alive inside of me of a way that person didn't even write. The seventh thing that inspires awe is stories of life and death. As we watch some of the things that happen in life and how people have overcome them and survived them and so forth, I think that's one of the reasons that Desmond Tutu's book, The Book of Forgiving, was so powerful for me, because it talked about stories of life where people were able to forgive the most horrific things you could imagine ever happening to you. And they found a place of forgiveness in their life. And that book is alive inside of me still from reading it. And the last thing is the epiphanies that we have, or I like to call them those 2x4 moments. Get hit upside the head with something that you know is true, and you can never unknow that is true, that is what's happening. So this is what Dr. Kellner says are the 8 wonders of life that will bring you awe. And remember, awe is that amplified feeling of joy. So how do we begin to blossom joy in our lives today? Well, I've talked about lots of different ways that we can find joy and so forth. And so what can we do to do that? How can we choose to blossom from within ourselves and choose daily to find those hyacinths for our soul? Well, the first thing we need to do is to stop and look around us and find the things that are beautiful. When you walk outside of these doors today, I want you to find something beautiful. Currently, I'm looking at a beautiful bush that I've seen bloom yellow in the springtime that is just gorgeous when it's filled with all those little yellow blossoms. That's just through a little narrow window. I'm sure when you get outside and you don't get all the things that are blocking it, that you will be able to find something. But before you go home today, find something that's beautiful to you. Feed your mind with spiritual truth. Find the truth. Find your truth. For many of us, it's from the Bible. It's those things that we've heard for years. Man does not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God. It's Matthew 4:4. Joel Goldsmith says that the number one passage in the Bible, the one that will help you understand spirituality more than anything else, comes from John. It's John 4:32. I have meat to eat ye know not of. I have meat to eat ye know not of. A little context around that, if you're not familiar with the passage. Jesus is sitting there, and his disciples decide that he needs to have some food to eat because he hasn't had anything to eat for a while. And so they offer him some food, and his response to them is, I have meat to eat ye know not of. I have something within me that is more sustaining, more nurturing, more providing than it could ever possibly come from without me. I have meat to eat ye know not of. I am working with that one. As I said, Joel says over and over again, that's the number one passage to begin to comprehend. And to begin, not just to comprehend, but to experience it. To begin to experience those moments when that spiritual nourishment is coming from within me and not something I'm bringing into myself. Best way to do this is enter into the silence. If you haven't started meditating, try it. Now, the thing that I hear more than anything else when I teach a meditation in a class is I can't meditate because I can't quiet my mind. Well, you know what? We've got this wonderful brain that was created for us to provide security and safety and stability and thought processes and all of these things. And guess what? It isn't designed to be quiet. It's not. The Buddhists call it the monkey mind. Now just picture a monkey chattering away, bouncing from one branch on a tree to another all the time. And that's what our mind is doing. And so what we do when we enter into the silence is we look for those pauses between the thoughts. And that's what they say is true meditation. Wayne Dyer describes it as the gap. Joel says it's the pause between the thoughts. Different people have different ways of describing it, but it's that moment, and it's very brief, because honestly, the moment you recognize that you're not having a thought, you've had a thought. So our goal is always to extend those moments, to not let ourselves get caught up in that, ooh, wow, look at that, I'm meditating. And to extend. I'm only saying this because this is what happens in my head. You know? So begin to expand those little brief gaps between the thoughts. And we do this very, very easily, very quickly. The best way is, just to focus on something like our breath. Mindfulness is the way that I like to do it. Mindfulness, there's all different kinds of mindful techniques out there. But for mindfulness, for me, I use my breath. And I keep my chattering mind calmed down by keeping my attention on my breath. The other way I do it is my morning drawing practice. And so as my hand is drawing on the paper, my conscious brain is engaged with what my hand is doing, which leaves space for my unconscious brain to recognize the gaps. And so for me, that's been a great meditative practice to begin to do that. And that goes right into this fourth one, is to create or appreciate art. The Catholics have a practice called Visio Divina. And Visio Divina is to sit and contemplate a piece of art and use that as a complete meditation. It's a wonderful practice of actually just beginning to look at something that is beautiful, that is inspirational, something that opens you up. Now it says art here, but I think you could do the same thing if you were staring out at Red Rock Mountain out there, where Red Rock National Park is. Or my favorite place here in the valley is the Valley of Fire, out northeast out there. Except not this time of year, because it's named Valley of Fire for a reason. March is really a good time to go to Valley of Fire, or November. But find the opportunity to listen to music, to dance in your kitchen, to write a line of poetry, to arrange some flowers on your table. Find a moment to create something beautiful in your life. Find a moment to create something purposeful. Our inner joy blossoms when we nurture the soul through beauty, stillness, gratitude, and truth. When you feed your soul, joy naturally blossoms within you. When you feed your soul. So find that thing that feeds your soul. And like we said last week, do the work to prepare the soil so that when you plant those new ideas, when you plant that new creative expression, it has a wonderful place to grow, to begin to become alive inside of you. I've spent the entire week cleaning up the soil of my craft room. Thanks to Justin's wife, Stacy, I'm getting a new fabulous machine to help me do a new avenue of crafting. I can't wait, you can imagine. But that meant I needed to have more space. So my master bedroom is now my craft room, and my craft room is now my bedroom. Because I thought, all I do in my bedroom is sleep. But boy, I can have room in my master bedroom to create. And so that's what I've spent this entire week doing, is switching the rooms around. So I can't wait to start creating more and more and more. That's the soil I'm nurturing right now. Between that and my spiritual work that I do every morning, my spiritual practices, the reading, the study, the prayer, the meditation, the contemplation, the being in community like this, that brings my soul alive. That gives me that place to create good, fertile, healthy soil that allows wonderful things to grow in my life. So find those things for yourself. Find that place where you are ready to blossom. Find that thing that brings you alive, that sparks you inside. Like I said, find beauty, find joy, find inspiration, and let it come alive inside of you. Because it's there all along. It's waiting for you to just find it. Go into the silence, listen intently, see what's coming through. One of the things that I've had to learn for myself is take a risk. That's what I tell the people when we're doing our Zentangle drawing class. It's just paper. It's just paper. Write something down on it. Draw something. Create something. I do pottery. It's just clay. It's just mud. I can play with it. Allow myself to have fun and to see what's wanting to come forth from me. If you're a poet, it's just words. Put it on paper. Let it come forth. Some of it's good. Some of it's It doesn't matter. It's coming from within you, and it's the practice of it that will bring you the joy. So find those things for yourself. All right, let's take this into prayer. I invite our spiritual practitioners to stand and surround us. These beloved individuals spend at least 4 years in study, learning these spiritual principles, engaging in practices, feeling that inspiration and joy come alive inside of themselves. And so if you will with me, just take in a nice breath. Let it out. Allow your eyes to close gently and enter into that place of stillness. Connecting with Spirit, with the source of that infinite joy. And so I know that right here and right now, there is only one awesome intelligence, one amazing creative force, one joy that is blossoming into expression right here and right now. I know this one is God, as Spirit, as the divine, as the creative love intelligence that has brought forth everything into existence. I know that this one is all there is. It is the isness, the allness, the fullness of all life. I know that this one is expressing itself through me right here and right now. That all that I am, all that I have ever been, is a divine incarnation of a love so powerful, it had to create. And create magnificently, it did. Each and every one of us is that unique and perfect expression of this divine intelligence. Each one of us is endowed with that same creative impulse, that same spark of joy, that same love that is bringing itself forth into expression right here and right now. And so I know this truth. I know that each one of us has a deep well of divine inspiration inside of us. And that as we go within and listen intently, tapping into that source of all inspiration, it comes forth from us. It bubbles up out of us. It expresses itself in the most perfect and unique ways for each one of us individually. It shows up as our music, as our love, as our creativity, as our food, as our art, as our nature. It shows up through us in most amazing bounty possible. I know this is the truth of each and every one of us. I know it is the truth of God right here and right now. And I just simply give thanks for this knowing. I'm so grateful to feel it. to know it and to see it happening right here and right now in each and every one of us. And so I simply release this word into the law, into that creative mind that always says yes, that never knows any limitation or lack, that is simply unfolding itself for the highest and greatest good of all. I let it go and I let it be, and together we say, and so it is.